Bluey is such a fun cartoon, but don't forget that there are also really sad stories in the show. Can you handle meeting the little pups that are suffering? Dougie, that little pup from the Turtle Boy episode, is one of the characters who's suffering the most in the series. Unfortunately, he can't speak or hear, and because of that, his life is really tough. In that episode, we find out that he can only communicate through sign language, but that's only possible with people who know how to use this kind of communication. Sadly, all around the world, very few people know how to use sign language, and especially younger ones like Bingo who haven't learned it yet. In other words, because of this difficulty, Dougie doesn't have many friends, and it's possible he doesn't have any at all. Things get even worse when we think that maybe Dougie is an only child, and in that case, the little pup would feel even lonelier, but that hasn't been confirmed yet. Even so, we know this proves why Dougie wanted so badly to take the lost toy from the park home with him. He knew that Turtle Boy was alone just like him, so he thought that taking the toy home would mean having a friend for the very first time. Does this mean Dougie will only have real friends when he gets older? We hope not, and let's cross our fingers he meets Bingo in the next season. But meanwhile, you can already tell today's video is heavy, right? So grab your popcorn, because another Cinewave is about to begin. Brandy. Chilli's sister is a character who's been sad for many years. She lost her mom, Mrs. Cattle, when she was very young, and because of that, she created the dream of having a puppy of her own. But in Chilli's own words, it wasn't meant to be. And that means that for many years, Aunt Brandy tried over and over to have a child and failed every single time. The series still hasn't said if the struggle to get pregnant is a family problem, since Chilli also lost a pup as we already know. But in the case of Mrs. Healer's sister, the problem is even bigger. In the episode where we meet this character, Chilli says it had already been 4 years since she last visited her sister. In other words, Aunt Brandy avoided meeting her nieces, and especially Bingo, who looks the most like her. That's terrible, and unfortunately it's a problem that could continue in season 4. Bluey's new cousin hasn't been born yet, and this could be seen as a risk. Both Chilli and her sister lost pups before they were born, and now Brandy may be thinking that her dream might not come true once again. Of course, nobody hopes for that, but this character might be sad right now, believing she just won't be lucky. But do you believe that? Morty. Grandpa Morty, who is Chilli's dad, has been a sad character for a long time, ever since he lost his wife, Mrs. Cattle, to a terrible illness. In the Dragon episode from season 3, Chilli tells Bluey what her mom was like and how she was so good at drawing. During that story, the show makes it clear that Chilli's imaginary horse is a reference to her mom, and in the end, we find out that this character is no longer alive. The episode's name, Dragon, is a reference to cancer, and it's a hint that this illness was what took Chilli's mom's life. Grandpa Morty has been sad ever since the day he lost the love of his life. If you know Bluey's universe well, you know Chilli's dad was a soldier, meaning he spent a lot of time away from home. That means that in the past, he probably wasn't around during his wife's final moments, and if that's true, the character must be very regretful. But Grandpa is still a character capable of finding happiness, because he has 2 daughters and granddaughters. In other words, his family still exists, and Grandpa is not alone. Doreen. But Chilli's dad's life is not the same as the Healer family's neighbor, Doreen, who sadly is completely alone in the world. This character is probably one of the saddest in the whole series. In the Grannymobile episode, we find out that she's selling some things because she wants to go to the beach. But what very few people notice is that the walker actually belonged to her husband. Now, let's think for just a second about 2 things. If she was selling the walker, it's because her husband didn't need it anymore, right? Which probably means the character had passed away. And another thing, why did Doreen's husband need the walker? Probably because he couldn't walk properly, meaning unfortunately, he was a sick dog. To this day, the Healer's neighbor hasn't shown that she has kids who keep her company, since the character appears alone every single time she shows up in the series. In other words, she feels the same pain as Chilli's dad, losing someone she loved. But in her case, it's even worse because Doreen doesn't have a family, and she's all alone. But you don't feel alone at all when you watch Bluey with us, right? Drop a hashtag Bluey so we can get to know ya. Judo. Judo is a character who feels a lot of sadness because of how much she misses her dad. The series still hasn't revealed who Wendy's ex-husband is, but we know he's a character who's constantly on Judo's mind. The first time this character appears in the show is in the Butterflies episode, when she starts by asking Bandit what he's doing. It's a small detail, but this moment shows how she sees in a father figure like Bandit the absence she feels. On top of that, in the Sticky Gecko episode, Chilli says Judo is always asking to play with the Healer pups, which means she feels lonely. You should also notice that Judo doesn't study at Bluey's school. Does that mean the little pup doesn't have friends? Chilli. Chilli might be one of the characters who suffers the most in the whole series, for the same reasons as her sister, who lost a child in the past, but in Mrs. Healer's case, there's a different detail. Chilli is the youngest sister in the cattle family, which means that when her mom passed away, Chilli suffered even more. She had less time with her mom, and after that, as an adult, Mrs. Healer lost a child she sadly never got to see born. In the Relax episode, when the family goes to the beach, Chilli is holding a book, and when Bingo asks her what she's reading, Mrs. Healer answers that it's about how to be happy. In other words, she is sad and needs help. And that's heartbreaking because Chilli is part of a wonderful family, and yet her past is still a problem that makes her unhappy. It really is such a shame. Coco. Coco is also a little pup who feels a lot of sadness, but in a curious way. Her life is the opposite of Judo's because in the case of the pink poodle, she has many siblings. In other words, she's not alone, but she also doesn't feel special. The truth is, if you watch the Wild Girls episode, you'll notice Coco feels sad because she was abandoned by her friends. That's the reason this character made our list. The poodle needs her friends a lot because when you're the youngest of 9 siblings, it's impossible to get all the attention a little pup needs. In other words, Coco is a pup who needs to feel special because unfortunately at home, she's just one more. Will we get to see an episode about the poodle family in the next season? That would show a little more about Coco's life. Toy shop clerk. There's another sad character we meet in the Quiet Game episode, and later we find out the reason for her sadness in the story of Mr. Monkey Jocks, the toy shop clerk. This character has a child who's in the hospital, as shown at the end of the Mr. Monkey Jocks episode, and we don't know exactly what illness her child has. It could be something serious or not. Let's hope it's nothing too bad, but no mom would be happy seeing her little one hospitalized. On top of that, there's a strange detail. She works in a toy store, but brought her child a used doll. Does that mean she can't take toys for her child from the store? Maybe she can't, but you can subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to get videos every single day. Indy. Indy is also a little pup who's probably sad, and this problem may have to do with her mom. In the markets episode, she can't eat anything being sold at the neighborhood fair because she can't have gluten, sugar, or milk. But not because she can't, and rather because her mom doesn't let her. Indy's family is vegan and doesn't eat anything that comes from animals. That's totally fine because people are different, but what if Indy doesn't want to be vegan? In the markets episode, she looks sad about not being able to eat the sweets that were for sale, and maybe that's a problem in her family. Jack. In the Army episode, we meet Jack Russell, a pup who started attending Calypso School, which in theory should be something happy. But Jack is, in fact, sad. In that episode, a lot of people complain about Jack's lack of attention, and the little pup says he doesn't know what's going on in his head. But that's a hint that he has ADHD, a condition that causes lack of attention in people. That's terrible, because this condition makes Jack make a lot of mistakes and disappoints others. But we love you, Jack. Bob. At the end of season 3, we find out that Grandpa Bob, who had been missing, came back for his son's wedding. And when Muffin asks where he had been, Grandma Chris answers that her husband was in India because he needed to find himself. That trip was to figure out what he needed to do with his life, and it shows that Bandit's dad was unhappy. Or maybe he still is. We don't know if Grandpa Bob came back because he found what he was looking for, or if he only did it because his oldest son was getting married. Will he disappear again in the next season? We'll find out all about this very soon when the Healer family hits the big screen in the movie that's coming out in the next few years. Mean Grandma. Do you remember the Grannymobile episode when Doreen wanted to sell some things to take a trip? In that story, a rude pug grandma showed up. She's mean. She insults Bandit about his weight. She broke a cup that belonged to the Healer's neighbor, and she even said she wouldn't pay. Later, she badmouths Chilli, and when she leaves, she even sticks out her tongue at everyone to show she doesn't respect anyone. This character might be seen as a horrible person, but the truth is, people who are that grumpy are actually sad. That old lady doesn't find any happiness in life, and maybe that's why she treats people that way. Maybe she never achieved her own dreams, and that's why she's always angry. Good thing we're gonna make your dream come true by staying here with us and making sure you have fun. We've picked out 2 videos for you to choose from. We'll see you in the next one. See you soon.